Okay, we are going to talk some Hull. I'm going to get his name right with Mr. Luke Flanagan. My apologies, Luke. I just called Liam on the previous take that I could have assigned to the annals of time, but I will admit my my poorness. There we go. So look, Hull. It's a very interesting situation. This because obviously brilliant League One promotion last season. Then this magnificent first game and the goals flowing and top of the table after the Preston game. Yeah. Then horrible, no goals, no wins for 10 games. But we go into international break with Malik Wilkes back, a little change of strategy with the 3-5-2 and a win and a clean sheet. So I'm sure you'd have given me a different answer if I asked you 3 games ago, but where are you with this now? And I'm assuming you're more optimistic after the past couple of games than you were.
Yeah, you're kind of right. I mean, the issue for me, I think, is that I know most football fans, as soon as it goes wrong, they can't wait to take to social media and moan. But Grant McCann's got his hands tied behind his back in many respects because he's got an EFL embargo over the Reds, and he's recruited fairly well in the summer, in my opinion. Kept some good players. A few went out, and then we brought good quality in, particularly in the loan market. I think the Preston game was so unexpected and unprecedented that I think a lot of people then judged the games afterwards like we should be winning every game. I certainly think the approach that you mentioned before, I think it was crying out for a little bit of tweaking because so many teams in the Championship use 3-5-2. And we have always been 4-3-3 since Grant McCann even came in. That was the kind of City DNA that was dictated to him by the chairman. He needed to fit around that. And when I was in the pre-match and we got the team sheets on Saturday, I just I still couldn't believe it because he's never done that. He's never changed the system so much where he's then put 3 centre halves in and gone 2 up top, which he did. And I think it was the lift that the fans got from that going, he's actually trying something different because he knows he's not getting the results and might be getting half-decent performances. We're not creating enough. And then, obviously, the Blackpool result in the last week, he went 2 up top out of necessity because we needed something and we had Louis Coyle sent off. He put 2 up top. Within 2 minutes, we'd scored. And I think he thought, actually, you know what? There is something here. We actually look dangerous and with a team with less men. And as I said, I mean, Middlesbrough, they played 3-5-2. We matched them up really well. The way that we played, we rode luck at times, but I think everybody in the ground was so relieved and kind of refreshed at the change that we had that there was no negativity, which has been the case. A lot of boo boys and stuff like that. We referred to them on the podcast as that, kind of tongue in cheek, I guess, really. But as soon as there's a little bit of trouble, it's like the fans used to be. The fans couldn't wait to get on the back of the manager, but it wasn't like that on Saturday. It was completely different. And I think it was because he had changed it. He'd gone 2 up top. He'd played Eves with Tyler Smith. He'd gone 3 centre-halves, and it was almost as if the fans felt he was listening to them. And then obviously with the result, the way it was, the feeling, I've not seen the stadium like that positive-wise for a very long time. It was like a turning point, I think.
So 2 questions then. If he'd been just a few points higher, even I'm looking, there's like 4 teams on 11 points and then 3 in 12. So literally 1 more win and Hull would be 6, 7 places up the table. Would he have gone what you're suggesting is a bit of a drastic switch? And also Keane Lewis-Potter, where from the outside, I'm like, okay, here's your star player. Here's your one that you might be able to sell in a few years, like Bowen, for a ton of money. He's backing at wing back. Is that going to affect him adversely in his value?
I mean, It's a good question. I don't think he would have done it if he didn't feel under so much pressure. I think the short answer to that is yes. I think it was getting to the stage where we weren't scoring and not getting a point. I know we got a point against Blackpool, but I certainly think there was a little bit of desperation in there, and the injuries that we've had. Got Josh McGuinness out, for example, then Callum Elder out, and also Tom Huddleston. That his squad is slightly stretched. I did find it odd that Keane Lewis-Potter had been asked to play this wing-back role, but he did really well in it. It maybe stifles his creativity a little bit, but I think there is a shout when Callum Elder comes back in to play him as a 10. You can see when he's on the edge of the area, and he scored. I know he got a bit of luck when he smashed it on off the post and it's hit Lumley's head and gone in at the weekend.
Yeah.
But it was very sort of reminiscent of Dean Windus, that goal in the 2008 final.
Right, yeah.
The technique behind it is kind of skewed off Eves. He's hit first time. He's always out on the left and he's kind of cutting in, and teams are doing their own work on him. So you get into, he's kind of been doubled up. So because he likes to cut in on the right foot and cross it, teams know that. And it's kind of stifled his game a little bit. But he had him and Moncur overlapping at different points, and then there was Tyler Smith there as well. It brought a little bit of different dimension to his game. My only worry would be Middlesbrough did have some chances. Their striker wasn't completely at it. They had a couple of chances where they could have scored and they didn't. They didn't really challenge us apart from on the break. I'd worry about when we had less of the ball and teams kind of overrunning us. Does he have the defensive experience to do that? I think when he was growing up in the 18s and in the 23s, he was much more of a central striker. So there might be cause to move him out through there, but it's certainly be interesting. I don't think he'll keep doing that, McCann. I don't think he'll keep Lewis-Potter on the left. I think it was more out of necessity. But he's very much an attacking threat, so it might just bring a different dimension to his game and up his value as the other thing. I'm not really sure, but certainly I'd be interested to see what he does next game, Huddersfield away after international break.
Interesting. And I'll give a second mention to Jared Bowen already. We saw what happened moving a wide player into the middle in that season, and he just lethal against centre halves, wasn't he? So speaking of sort of individual players, has anyone sort of stood out for you? I had high expectations for Greaves at the back. We've already mentioned Lewis-Potter. I suppose Wilkes has been injured, hasn't he? Who's stood out for you in these first 11?
I think Greg Docherty's always dependable in the middle. He's had a couple of games out of injury as well, but I actually think Deshaun Bernard has been one of the main ones that I've really taken away and thought he's such a player, really good, really confident, and especially when it's a back three as well. He can play right back as well. He has done for Salford, I believe, last year when he was out on loan there. He looks comfortable in a 4, but he also looks comfortable in a 3, and he's been unbelievable in some of the performances that he's put in there. Really, really impressed with him. I think he complements Greaves well, and Alfie Jones is always there as well. Alfie's had a little bit of a poor season in his respects because he's been injured so much. He played against Preston, and then he's been injured, and then he's come back and he's got injured again. So I think Deshaun Bernard's been really good, and actually when he's come back into the team, Tom Eaves has done absolutely nothing wrong when everybody thought he'd be out the door and never play for City again. People like Josh Hines chosen in front of him against Bournemouth, young lad who's 18 in the academy, and he was chosen above Eaves at the end of August. They tried to loan him out, and it didn't work, and he's kind of taken that to heart and really improved. So Bernard for me, but I'm really impressed with the way Eaves has forced his way back into the team and made himself, kind of the central focus of the attack, with Josh McGuinness not fully fit yet. And
if you get a two up top going forward, there might be that door might be ajar for someone like Tom Eaves. This feels like a bit of a softball, being you won your first game 4-1 and then didn't score for the next 10 hours. What's been your standout performance of the season?
I actually think, although obviously people say Preston scored 4 goals, but I think the determination that you saw in the sort of last 10 minutes of the Blackpool game and into that, I mean, everybody, it looked like they played 3-5-2 all season, and they clearly hadn't. They'd had that switch kind of midweek, and then they'd really worked on it. Everything about that performance, the togetherness, and they're going to give chances up. In the Championship, there aren't any easy games, as the old cliche goes. So you're always going to have you're going to have less of the ball in stages, and you're always going to concede chances. But the way that, like, particularly people like Andy Cannon, just getting himself in front of balls, blocking everything, the high intensity pressing was brilliant. Whether they can maintain that over the next 4 or 5 games it's a difficult game to play that. But I certainly think that was the Middlesbrough win was the most impressive I've seen as this season, just because of, I think, more about the situations. But we could have been 3-0 down on 80 minutes and we were still 0-0, and that was testament to goalkeeper, defenders, everybody just working together.
Absolutely. Without necessarily feeling like you're digging someone out, I wouldn't ask you to do that. But who do you think you can get a little bit more out of? I mean, maybe Wilkes is the answer given the output last season. Going forward in the remainder of this season?
I think Wilkes is another one. He played against Preston and he'd been out for 6 games. So it's part and parcel of coming back to full fitness. I do think I want to see more from Josh McGuinness. I really liked him last year. He scored over 20 goals. And he's just not looked the same striker. I know you're going up the difficulties is going up when you go to Championship. You're playing against better quality opposition, without any disrespect to anybody else. But yeah, it's shown that when Eves comes into the team and he really looks like a threat, I'd want McGuinness to be doing something similar, and he's just kind of not hit the ground running yet. It might be that he's not fully fit and he's not on all cylinders and all that sort of stuff, but I certainly want to see more from Eves and from McGuinness.
Brilliant. This feels like a really interesting question, because I just done this with Luton, funnily enough, where they're one below halfway, which you would say is probably a good barometer for Luton.
Yep.
Hull are one above relegation, which you would probably feel, without wanting to come across patronising, just stay up. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Which is probably a good barometer for Hull. And you can parlay any possible future points deductions for other teams into your answer here. Yeah. But if you and I chat at Christmas, do you think they're going to be higher, i.e. surviving, or lower than where they are right now?
I'd expect us to be where we are, roughly, give or take 3 places. If we were between 21st or 18th, I think that's where the squad is probably capable of performing when they're firing. We haven't got an expensive squad that can compete with the biggest boys in the Championship. But also, I mean, when they do play for each other, like you saw on Saturday, they can dig the results out, and I think they're harder to dig, certainly. They'll be harder to beat when they've got the 3 at the back and 5 in midfield. But I'd expect us to be where we are. That's where I want us to finish, above the relegation zones and as high as possible. But I'm realistic in the fact that with the injuries that we've had, remember, we've not had Honeyman for 99% of the games. He did play against, I think he came on against Bournemouth, but
Sheffield United, he was having a lovely old time at the set plays, wasn't he?
It was Sheffield United he came on against, yeah. Within the first 30 seconds, he'd been booked already. And I love that about a player, but he's no good to us in the stands, is he? It was just, I think it was just the occasion got to him, and he knew that
he was trying to out Billy Sharp, which you're not going to
Billy
happen.
Sharp gets away with what he likes. It's Billy Sharp, but I mean that's for another day.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think where we are now, if we're there at Christmas, as you say, I still think we're doing very well, because there's teams with a much bigger budget than we are, and with the injuries that we've got, we've had our hand tied behind our back in some respects. So more to come back after the international break and see if we get a little bit further up that table.
Right, we're asking everybody for a letter grade, and obviously expectations from a club promoted from League One are going to be slightly different than maybe one who's getting a year 1 parachute payment, for example. But yes, bad run without scoring, but currently outside of the relegation zone. So what would you give McCann and Hull for their first 11 games?
I mean, good in stages, but there's an awful lot of defensive kind of frailties that they seem to have worked on in the last few weeks, which is very promising. But I mean, if it was to give it a grade, I'd probably sort of say C+, needs to do better. It's not terrible. I think a lot of the fans overreact a lot of the time with things, but I think that's true of every fan, isn't it, really? There have been some poor performances, but there's also been some, like Grant McCann said, and I thought it was spot on at the weekend, we've played better than against Middlesbrough and lost. So there certainly have been very good performances out there. We just haven't really, like QPR, I thought we were excellent. We just couldn't score. And then 2 defensive sort of mix-ups from a set piece, and you're already 3 down, and it looks like a 3-0 game, and it wasn't at all. So I thought we actually played better against teams like QPR, was really in the game a lot of the time, and ended up coming on the losing side. So I don't think it's all as doom and gloom as a lot of people say, but I certainly think a lot of City fans would probably agree with me in that it's C+, in that there are some good stuff being played, and there are some excellent things, but the soft underbelly that we seem to have from set pieces has to disappear, and it did. It did on Saturday, and I hope it's just that McCann and his team are working on that, and they are a young side at the end of the day. All of them were under 21 at the weekend when McLaughlin came on. It's early 20s max, 20 like the Bernard is like 19, 20 as well. So they're young and they're learning on the job. So C+ I'd go for.
Brilliant stuff, Luke. Where can my subscribers here find you on Twitter and read and listen to your work?
So it's Luke OT92 on Twitter.
Not Liam.
No, it's not Liam. Do you know what's really funny? My mum almost called me Liam.
Oh, stop it!
Born.
Sorry.
She decided on Luke, so it must be a fate thing that you've confused me with that, and that was the other name that my mum was telling me to him when I was born. So
sorry. Yeah, you were mid plug then. My bad.
Yeah, Luke at Luke OT92 on Twitter.
Fantastic. Brilliant stuff, Luke. And yes, we will watch that line and whether Hull can traverse it upwards or downwards. But yeah, cause for optimism. Thank you very much, Luke.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.